After a long wait, Guilty Gear Strive Season 4 finally received a mid-season balance patch along with the final character of Season 4, Lucy. And in today's video, I want to talk about the characters that I think are the biggest winners from this update and the biggest losers from this update. And first, let's start positive and start with the winners of the patch. Primarily, I want to start with characters that I feel like have not really gotten nerfed. Happy Chaos was an arguable top tier already last patch. Most high level players would either have him at top tier straight up or incredibly close. In my opinion, I didn't think he was in the absolute best group of characters, but I definitely would consider him a winning character in the previous patch. So I think his big win is that he didn't actually get touched, or let's say. For starters, he has Blue Wild Assault, which is relatively untouched compared to the other two types of Wild Assaults that got nerfed. Red Wild Assault got nerfed in that you cannot cancel it on block anymore. And White Wild Assault can no longer be roaming cancelled. Also, stronger characters got nerfed, so of course since this character's release, Happy Chaos has been considered to be a very problematic character in the game in general. But when other characters are weakened, Happy Chaos tends to stand out more. And then finally, they didn't weaken previous improvements to HC. So things like Jump 2K launching, or the RNG shot, the ability to whip a button into shot without curse, and sometimes get the shot to connect anyway. This video is brought to you by Dragon Ball Genshin Squadra. This game is a 4v4 team battle in the world of Dragon Ball, and you can play as your favorite Dragon Ball characters and join up with your friends and allies to defeat opponents and dominate objectives. You can get stronger by playing, unlocking skills, and beat enemies and bosses alike. You can pick heroes with different abilities and skills to perform different strategic roles for your team. So there's the damage type, pretty simple but effective, a playstyle that's focused on aggression, designed to take down the enemy. The tank role is persistent and it's hard to KO. They can soak up enemy attacks and help the team to hold their ground. The technical role is a versatile support. They can maximize your team's chances by boosting allies and disrupt the enemy. You can personalize your favorite heroes in your own style too, and the game has customizable skins, entrance animations, and special finisher animations so you can show off your love for Dragon Ball in your own way. You can click the link in the description below or in the pinned comment for more details, and thank you to Dragon Ball Genshin Squadra for sponsoring this video. Then we have Potemkin. Potemkin was the best character in the previous patch. Many top players agreed that he was the #1 character, and he did get nerfed this patch, but from my perspective, I think he's still top tier, just not the clear best character. Potemkin's nerfs are specifically there to target how he defends, so he actually is pretty bad at getting out the corner. He can double jump, but he can't air dash, so he tends to have to fight his way out the corner. He has the highest HP in the game, and powerful supers like Gigantokai to take space back, and special moves and special properties to take his turn back. On top of that, as a high HP character, he has basically a guarantee of getting resource during the game to use against the opponent. So the first nerf that matters to him is Slidehead no longer having armor, now leaving him with Hammerfall and the previously shown Potemkin Buster for armor attacks. The biggest thing about Slidehead compared to the others is that this move is also plus on block, a plus 10 guard crush, where Hammerfall, while having fast armor, is incredibly disadvantageous to the point where you could do something like 2H with Bike into punish, which is not a fast move. And of course for Pop Buster, you need to actually be in range to use it. Basically saying that there needs to be some risk for you to use armor. Forward Megafist also got a nerf. In past versions of the games, back Megafist was incredibly strong, but in the last patch he had the combination of Slidehead, Hammerfall, and Pop Buster to work with. Megafist acts as a move to get over things and immediately take your turn back. It has more recovery on whiff, which I don't think is like a huge nerf. It's a nerf for sure, but I think the bigger nerf for Megafist, I'm saying this at least from the perspective of playing against him, is that it's a little bit bigger when you swing into it. So this situation can still happen where he hops over something, but it's far more common now to get like these type of hits. While these are nerfed though, I think he still maintains a slew of powerful tactics, and he even received a buff to a move that everyone was saying should be nerfed. I say everyone, but maybe not Potemkin players think that this move should be nerfed. So they sped up the startup of Flick by 1 frame, so not only can you no longer mash on it with 6p, but they also left the recovery really low, and it's massive. So this move is incredibly hard to actually punish him for doing, unless you are already in a position to like hit him like like here where I jumped over it, and I didn't get a punish anyway. So I still think the character is pretty strong, and I think he's a winner because he received nerfs, but he overall is still an extremely powerful character. The next characters I want to look at are characters that people consider to be extremely weak. These are both Season 4 characters, and I'm going to talk about Dizzy first. So to be honest, Dizzy's buffs look more muted to me than Venom's buffs. If you look at the patch notes list, Venom has a massive list of changes compared to Dizzy. But Dizzy's changes are quite focused. They are pretty focused on her mid-range and letting her set up her game plan easier. She got buffs to Far Slash and 2S, specifically 2S being bigger than Vapor, but I think the one that everyone feels the most is the change to Ice Spike. This move was already incredibly active before, and generally the way I show the difference between active frames on a previous patch versus a new patch is backdashing. But this move already beat backdashes. But this move is so active now that you can like see it on the screen and like run into it really late. These enhanced active frames really help her set up from full screen. The change to the ice also seems to have made it so that Wings of Light is more accessible. This is a move that exchanges her tension gauge for damage, and I've been keeping an eye on Dizzy by watching matches of her, and I feel like I'm seeing it go off far more than I did in the previous patch, which honestly this move was my biggest concern with this character, so we'll see how she ends up developing with the new buffs. Now Venom, there doesn't really seem to be a focus besides just an overall improvement to his kit. Buffs on his jab makes the ball far more active. In the previous version, this would travel like half the distance. And these slow balls were always really good because it's a slow traveling fireball. He recovers first. He really could use the control. So having something that's active on screen is very nice. His damage is up on quite a few moves, both from moves in neutral like Air Carcass Raid and the initial hits of Carcass. So the combination of the additional damage on these things, plus things like the balls doing more damage, plus different launches on 2H, just makes his combos feel more consistent. He also has more opportunities for plus frames and more unique offense due to the buff to S Carcass Grade being +5 now, and the addition of late hits on the balls. So personally to me, Dizzy looks clearly stronger. Venom also looks stronger, but my concern is despite the big list of buffs, the characters might end up be like middling, which is also fine, but from that perspective, I'm just kind of concerned with people being like, the characters are still not good enough. There are plenty of characters that are mid-tier that do pretty well at events. I mean, my own main Baiken is one of them, along with arguably characters like Giovanna. And most importantly, the characters will feel a lot more fun to play. Things that used to feel miserable to play against should feel a lot better to play against. And most importantly, it would feel like the things you do actually have impact. Because personally, the thing that makes me the most frustrated when playing this game is when I feel like I do something that's correct, but my opponent doesn't really care because there's no like impact. There's no like big consequence for that choice. And while I didn't have that much time on Dizzy, I do have quite a bit of time on Venom in the previous patch, and near the end, that was like one of the biggest things that I was feeling was the only thing I could make them care about was command grab and super. Now, before we talk about losers, actually, I want to talk about a pair of characters that I feel like the devs have had trouble balancing over the years. The first one being Axel. Axel has been consistently rated a low tier in this game, and the ways they've changed him over the years have been considered pretty confusing. For example, they changed the input of Axel Bomber. This used to be a DP input, now it's a core circle input. They changed Rensen. This used to be a charge input, now it's not. He's gotten many combo route changes over the years as well. So Axel got combo changes again, but I think the one that you feel fighting Axel is the snail being a hard knockdown. Previously, this was a soft knockdown, and this makes sense if you feel like it. It's Axel. He likes playing from over here, so having a move that sends you full screen and then the opponent rolls away makes sense. But the hard knockdown change actually opens up potential mix-up situations and opportunities to speed up his game plan. Now, Testament is like the opposite of Axel. So Axel changes were always kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, what are you trying to do with this character? And it always felt like to me that they're like really scared of Axel being super good, where Testament always gets buffs and has gone through another round of buffs. Testament has gotten things like the fireball having less of a hurt box than before, gaining the ability to combo off throw, 6H becoming a hard knockdown, and Yuli, not only is Crow a hard knockdown, but Stain also won't pop OTG to make sure they can keep offense going. And despite these changes, they've never really been considered better than a mid-tier basically in any patch. While it's kind of clear to me that they want Testament to be a better character, at this point it kind of feels like the character's design is kind of restricting them. And in Axel's case, again, I just feel like they really don't know what they want Axel to be, unless they specifically actually want Axel to be like this and he is supposed to be a counterpick character, because in my mind Axel is like one of the GOAT counterpick characters in Guilty Gear history. In all Guilty Gear games I was like, damn, low-key Axel is a GOAT counterpick character. But people tend to solo Axel. There are people who like Axel, they like that playstyle, so they only want to play him. So from that perspective, I always feel like, but solo though, he's not that great. Next, I want to talk about the losers of the patch though. So first, I want to talk about characters that got hit by strays in my opinion. We have to start with Faust. Now, Faust did actually get a pretty notable buff in his far slash having less pushback. So in the previous patch, it was very likely that at max range, his 2H would whiff on far slash. But the biggest change to Faust is definitely the loss of super PRC. This is a pretty big deal. I have definitely heard some people be like, man, he only got one nerf, like why is everyone freaking out? But you have to remember that he has an extremely slow super, and he was basically like the poster boy of this technique. This helped him out a lot on defense, and he was actually pretty flexible with his meter because he could use it on defense with super PRC. He could use it from neutral to mix you from neutral, or to mix you up like this. So not only does this take it away, but it also really nerfs his defense in a game where characters have really good offense and he is not that good at getting out of the corner. It might be a surprise because of how high his jump and how floaty his air dash is, but when he's actually fighting out of the corner, outside of this new far slash buff, which is definitely appreciated for this, he really is not good at swinging out. He's got like great punch buttons in 2P and 2K, but there are ranges where this won't connect or where this won't connect. So having something else to bank on is pretty good. Now he does still have YRC, and I think with the pushback he acts pretty well with YRC because another couple of buttons and they're far away, but also by doing that you're putting yourself in a pretty severe meter penalty. Playing against him though, you will probably feel like matches are being, let's say, flipped less because he does not have the ability to do this. Really, Faust is paying for the sins of characters like Potemkin having Heavenly into Super PRC, or Gold Lewis having his Super PRC. And I don't think this character has ever been high tier, so from my perspective, this is a stray. Now the other one is Elphelt. This is a character that I actually rated as like a theory high tier character. Really big emphasis on theory though, because she doesn't really have tournament results in the previous version of the game, and I was actually pretty surprised to see her get multiple nerfs. I actually did want this character to get nerfed, but only one thing, and they did that and more, which was really surprising. So the big one is Bomb Vest. So this causes a knockdown now, but if you hit Elphelt, it goes away. This is fine and good, and I like this change, and this is a change. This is the only change I wanted from her. I thought everything else was pretty much fine, and I think it's fine for her to be a good character. But I find it quite silly that Elphelt lost that, and Potemkin keeps this. For example, I would much prefer for it to be a more universal change, that if someone has a super like this and they get hit, it goes away. This move has been nerfed twice now because it actually was even better at launch of Season 4 when it lasted way longer. It was a very powerful move with little counterplay. So making it a shorter total duration was definitely a good idea, but they just went even further with it, which again is fine, but I think they should have done that to other characters too. Next, Hereka got nerfed so that you could only do 2 follow-ups. On paper, this is pretty minor in offense, because typically what Elphelt players would do would be to pick one mix-up and end with shotgun, even on block. So they would do this so that they could guess against you or go back to neutral. But apparently the bigger thing is that it affects her combos, because previously she had combos where she would do like 4 parts of the Rekka, where now she can't. And I think to really make it worse, the way the patch notes read sounded like they improved the move, because they noted a change to the overhead, and a lot of people thought that this change would be about fighting reversals, because Elphelt players typically complain about reversals a lot because there's a lot of gaps in their pressure, but the gap remains. And it turns out this was only to change something about Giovanna being able to throw the overhead, and that's it. Finally, the nerf to Red Water Salt does hurt Elfelt. So this character does have a lot of gaps in offense. While the Rekka is powerful, there's a lot of ways you can guess against different parts of her offense. So a really good way to close this gap previously would be to use Red Wild Assault. With a small delay, you could catch mashing for a big return. But then on block, you'd be able to continue with pressure or resets or whatever. But now, since she's -3, your turn kind of just ends. And yes, you can guess hard on things like 6p or something, but in the end, it's not a good situation. You're also kind of close to the opponent, and it's just another point where you have to guess, but you're spending 50 meter on it instead. If burst is valuable in this game, it's your combo breaker, so this definitely hurts the character. And the other group of characters I think that lost in this patch are characters that were considered very strong that I think actually got nerfed. So for starters, Sin. So I think the theme of Sin's nerfs is to slow him down a little bit. And I'm not talking about like his actual speed, but the speed of his play. Mainly that in Season 4, he could pretty much kill you in 2 hits very reliably. So despite his weaknesses, he was still a really strong character. Since we just touched on Elfelt's Red Wild Assault, we will also talk about Sin's Red Wild Assault. And in his case, what he would use Red Wild Assault for is when he does a bunch of stamina uses. His stamina takes a long time to come back, about 13 seconds, so he needs a way to stall in order to get it back. So what Sin players would do previously is, after using a bunch of stamina, they would either use Red RC in order to delay for it to come back along with Strike Throw, or they would burn a bunch of stamina, and then after a small amount of conditioning, they would use Red Wild Assault because he would get another string of attacks and then it would start coming back. Now, out of these two, Red Wild Assault was very convenient. When you start a game, you start with burst, but you don't start with meter. So he'd have access to 2 Red Wild Assaults to help him out with this. Now that it's disadvantaged on block, he is nowhere near as incentivized to use it this way as he was previously. Next is a change to Elk Hunt. Elk Hunt as a starter and the follow-up to Elk Hunt can't be comboed off of normally. The follow-up to Elk Hunt can be comboed off of if it's a counter hit, which it retains its medium counter hit, which has been removed from basically everyone else who has this style of move. So typically I think of Sin as a character who either conditions you and hits you, or scores a hit in neutral and then uses that to break the wall immediately. So Elk Hunt being nerfed in this way adds an extra step to Sin, because normally this hit would lead to a wall break and then he needs to hit you one more time to win. So now instead he has to hit you and then pull up and then hit you again and then break the wall there. And this change will definitely factor into how he spends stamina. And then finally it's Hoof Stomp. So I'm going to be a little bit honest, and I think this is more of a nerf to like beginner Sins and high level Sin. So at higher level play, Sin players tend to use this to deal with throw, and in particular throw PRC. But at lower levels, I do find that people really use this as a crutch to hit people. That being said, he can still combo off it in the corner because it has a wall bounce, and with some awareness, because it has a wall bounce, you can use it outside of the corner. But he has all these spots on the screen where he can't combo off it unless he has 50 meter. I think this is the lightest nerf he received, personally. But overall, these changes are, he's just not going to two-touch you as often. Then we have Johnny. So Johnny got a couple of nerfs, but the main ones I'm going to be looking at are the nerfs to his dash and his backdash. So his backdash is more in line with big body, so it travels further than before, but it is now at 22 frames from 18 frames. So this has a lot of effects on his play. So for starters, it is far less likely that he's able to do backdash far slash out of your pressure, because even if he gets the distance, he has 4 additional frames of recovery, so it is less likely that he will hit you, punish you with this into a combo. The other thing about it is that if he backdashes, he might not even be in range to press this button in the first place, so he would have to consider using something like 2S, which is even slower. Now, in exchange, he does reposition a little bit better because of how far he travels compared to before. But an additional note is that he's also weaker against throw PRC because of his backdash now being reactable. So if I try to throw him, I actually have a chance to see what he's doing, and I can recover in time rather than get thrown by him. From a pure numbers standpoint, he has the worst 5 frame backdash in the game now, worse than Asuka and Baiken, who have 21 frame ones. And he doesn't have like a special benefit compared to those two. Baiken, for example, has the tether backdash that's unique to her. And of course, Asuka, you know, he's casting spells. You know, what other benefit do you need? His forward dash still maintains its speed as far as frames go, but it no longer travels as far. So this has implications for how his game plan is built. In this example here, I'll do a pretty standard Johnny setup into TK Mistfinder. But if you defend this Mistfinder, because of how short his dash is now, he is actually in far slash range here. This means that if he follows up his pressure with far slash, I'm able to counter either with my 6P or with a parry. Now, this Mistfinder is +8, so previously he'd be close enough to do close slash here and it would just be airtight and he could continue his offense. So there are workarounds. So for example, using dash TK Mistfinder so that you're in close range. But Mistfinder is a physical attack here too, so if you FD the Mistfinder, then again, he's not going to be in range. So the major challenge for Johnny players is restructuring his game plan, because previously these flowed into each other very freely. And he was able to keep up his offense or peel off and farm meter from neutral. I think the vault change is also a big deal, but I think the changes to his dash and backdash are more impactful. Also keep in mind too that now you have the ability to YRC doing guard crush. So it's another angle of offense that Johnny players used to not have to deal with at all, that now he has to consider in building his structure. Now, in his case, I actually don't think Red Wild Assault is a big nerf to him. This was more of a combo tool than anything else, unless you had meter. But overall, I think the character is still like good, but definitely not even close to a top tier character. And then finally, Leo. So normally Leo is a long time top tier. Usually people think they never touch Leo. He's always super strong. But he got a couple of important changes that I think really affect him this patch. Again, we must talk about Wild Assault. So in Leo's case, this is an important pressure tool because of a difficult but consistent tactic against this string. So if someone has the ability to IB 6k and throw, this is a really good opportunity to take your turn back against Leo. And depending on what character you play, this is a huge deal. What Leo players would do is, if they saw you instant block, they would dial Red Wild Assault so they can keep their offense, build more meter, and then shift into his front turn stance pressure, which is quite good at. Keep in mind too that one of Leo's best pokes is his dash 2k, so this is pretty common in matches. And if you didn't have something like a fast jab or a reversal, being able to perform this is really important. With Wild Assault being nerfed, he could still do it, but he's going to be -3 here, and he's not really good at mashing. His jabs are small, and his 2k is slow at 7 frames, and his 5k is even slower at 9 frames, so he does have a pretty big disadvantage. He does have the option to try to cancel into 2T6S, but the timing is tight. Essentially, it's like a 1 frame timing to beat throw. Doable, I would say, I guess, but pretty difficult. Not to mention that he's punishable at -6 when he does it. Now, another big nerf he got was to his HGP, which is now a soft knockdown. And this has been a hard knockdown since release, and it gave him access to back turn pressure. And I actually don't think this is a big nerf on the surface. And there's plenty of examples of Leo players not wanting to cross up on the hard knockdown. So for example, let's say here I get hit, I just burst him into the corner, and now I have advantage and he has to fight his way out. But the main thing is that they lost the option entirely, and this was really good when the opponent didn't have burst, or if they don't have a reversal or something like that. Like Sin, I think this change slows down his access to his win condition a bit. Now, the last nerf he got was to change his back turn H. So not only does this have far more pushback than before, but they also decreased the attack level. Now, what this change does is it prevents him from accessing a follow-up mix-up if someone defends back turn H, because previously you could go into a dash 2k there. And this was really strong because usually characters have to spend some type of resource, like a character-specific resource, meter, like something to get access to something like this, and he just had it on back turn H. The overhead speed and its ability to avoid throws is maintained, but this makes it so there's some sort of out if you defend correctly. But yeah, that's my take. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this patch plays out. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you think won, lost? If you disagree or want to add something. As usual too, if you have any questions or comments, just feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you're interested in Guilty Gear coaching, I do that over on Medify, medify.gg/LordKnight. I have a Patreon too, where I write stuff, upload stuff early sometimes. You can check that out at patreon.com/LordKnight. Great way to support me. I stream on most days, mostly every day on weekdays, twitch.tv/LordKnight. We hang out there and also record videos for my second channel, LordKnight Chronicles, there too. And thank you to Dragon Ball Gakishin Squadra for sponsoring this video. You can click the link in the pinned comment below to pre-register for the game. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.